So before we go ahead with what we have for today. So like I said, in today's class, we are going to be looking at some of the labs that we have here. We just concluded the modules for networking. So we've got 3 labs that we're supposed to look at, which is the lab 4, implement virtual networking, lab 5, implement inter-site connectivity, and the last one, which is the lab 6, how to implement network traffic management. I think that should be another one. This lab 11, but don't let us skip it though, because I think it should be part of this. But so these are the 3, not really part of networking, but I think we've touched based on it. So these are the 3 labs that we're going to be looking at today. Maybe we may not be able to complete it, but at least this is what we have for today. Any question from anyone regarding what we've been doing? If you have any question, what you feel like is you just want to ask, just let me know. So I'm going to be opening this up. Yep. So come on. Yeah. So let me know if you have got any question. If not, then I can just start looking at this particular one.
Please, can you share the link for all these labs, right?
Really? You guys have got the link. I've sent this like
Oh, really?
800 times, but don't worry, I'll share the link again. But if
Okay.
you just want to look for that lab, you can just
Okay.
type any of the courses, any Microsoft courses that you're actually on. Let's say I want to look for this particular lab. This page for AZ104, I can just say AZ104 labs. For you. Oh,
Yeah.
AZ104 labs. So to make it easy, you just add GitHub in front of it. So if you add
Okay.
GitHub in front of it, it takes you to they bring us all those pages. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so you can see this is the lab. So any of
Okay.
these guys, you can click on any of these guys, so you can see. But this takes you to the GitHub resource itself. But this takes to the page. So you would see the Microsoft learning.github.io because it's hosted on GitHub. So I just rather just go on this particular one. And so if you do the another thing, oh okay, so there's no so GitHub.io. If you want to any of those courses also, let's say the 500, which is the security, the 4, which is the Azure DevOps, also you can search, just type in the AZ104, then labs or and GitHub, and it will take you to that particular course, so you can see labs for that particular course. Yes, but
Thank you.
sure.
Yeah, Femi, I don't think you've started recording the class.
Yeah, it's been recorded, but not yet though. But yeah, I would record it there also.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's fine. Thank you so much. Okay, so like I said, we are going to be looking at the lab 4, 5, and 6. For the lab 4, it's all about how to implement virtual networking. And when we talk about implementing virtual networking, we're just going to look at what are some of the basics of this virtual networking in Azure. How to create a new network surely, and talk about the IP addressing, how to create subnet, different type of subnet that we've got. We all know that the kind of subnet that we use, or is actually the general subnet. There are other different type of subnet we can leverage on, like the firewalls, like the what's this? The firewalls, the gateway subnet, and the likes. Depending on what you're actually doing, what operation are you actually performing. So for this particular one, what we are going to be looking at is how to implement these virtual networking. Me looking at these, you can see what are some of the tasks of the 4 tasks that we are going to be looking at. the first thing is to create virtual network with subnet using the portal. We all know that there is no way you can actually create a virtual network without a subnet. So you must have at least one subnet within your virtual network. Then how to create that's using the portal, right? Then how to create a virtual network and subnet. The same thing, but using the template now. Then create and configure communication between application security group and network security group. We talked about the NSG, we talked about the ASG, and that's it. Yeah. Then the last one would be how to configure public and private Azure DNS zones. So that's all you can see here. The first one, you can see the tax 1, the tax 2, the tax 3, you can see, and the tax 4. When you have the tax 3, you can see it's just about implementation. And the tax 4. Who can tell me the difference between these application security group and the NSG group? Anyone can just try ASG and the NSG. At least if you know, even if you don't know the difference, at least if you know any, if you can talk about any of them, I'm waiting. I know you guys know it though.
I
Yeah,
think the application.
that's
Um.
like when
Yeah.
people think.
Yeah. Okay. The ASG, filter. It's like a firewall that connects Azure resources between two app, whereas the NSG looks at the network as a whole.
Okay, so yeah, so for the the most simplest, or how you can actually put this is, for NSG is the network security group, right? Is used for filtering out traffic in and out
Mm,
of your network, and
mm,
NSG is actually attached to the subnet, or the NIC of your subnet, or the NIC card of your virtual machine. Now for the ASG now, because for every, let's say, for every virtual machine, virtual network that we've created now, we created our subnet and we want to actually assign an NSG to each subnet. So I have so many virtual machines within my environment, and those virtual machines are actually being used maybe to host my application. Now I've got this virtual machine 1, virtual machine 2 in different subnets, maybe even different VNet or so, or let's say different subnets in this case. That means, and we said that NSG can only be applied on on the subnet or the NIC card. So that means I need to create NSG on this particular subnet, create NSG on another subnet, and create NSG on another subnet. Why not group everything together? Let's create a group and assign this security group at once. Do you understand? Instead of defining NSG at each subnet level, you can use the application security group, to group all your virtual machines and other resources, and assign one granular security settings to all of them at once. Do you understand? So that's one thing about the application security group. So you are grouping all your resources together, based on the application tier, or roles, and just assign one particular security settings to them, instead of creating them one after the other just because you want to assign. So you are still on the right point, on the right path. So thank you. So let's go ahead and work on this. What I'm going to do is to divide my screen into two. Let's do this. I've got other screens also I could use, but it will be too. That's gonna be too huge. That's gonna be too huge. Just give me a minute. So I'm so sure you can still see my screen, right? Okay, so let's go this way. I'm dividing this into two so that you can actually see what I'm actually doing. So on the left hand side, we still have the tasks we're actually going to be working on, and here we have the portal open. So what do we need to do? We need to just sign into the Azure portal, which is via the portal.azure.com, which I've done already. Then select virtual network, create a new virtual network. So, but for me, like I said, instead of clicking on create a new resource, like what has been done here, I just prefer searching for the resource I want to work on. So I'll click on virtual network. Then I'll start creating. I've got so many, but let's see. I'll start creating a new one because I want to merge this. So I'm going to say Azure Labs. That's what I'm going to call it. That's the resource group though. Then the network name is going to be, oh, okay. They told us to create a new resource group, but let me use the Azure Labs. So the name of this particular one, because I'm so sure someone else might have created the Azure Labs within my environment. So the name of the virtual network is Core Service VNet, and this should be in East US. So I'm just gonna go with what they have here. Then the next thing is to move. So they didn't ask us to do anything on the security tab. So they asked us to move to, the IP addressing. So this is where we now decide what IP addressing we want. By default, Azure will always give you this 10.0.0.0/16 anytime you create a new VNet. So that to prevent conflict, we'll rather just change it, and that's why people have these IP addressing management system within their environment. We call it IPAM, so that at least you can actually track the IP addresses you have actually consumed. So because now you can see this guy is telling me this address actually overlaps with this virtual network. So if I go ahead and create this, and at some point I want to pair with this particular network, I won't be able to pair. So for me, I'm just going to do this, and that means I'm going to change this to .20. I'm not so sure I don't have .20 within the environment. Oh, lovely. So there's no .20. And the next thing is to add a subnet. So for this particular subnet now, they've got two subnets they want us to create. The first subnet is the shared service subnet, and the second subnet is the database subnet. So you can see complete the name of the asset and blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to now, I'm not going to delete this one. I'm just going to edit it and rename that particular subnet from the default to, so you can see, like I said, there is always this option that says subnet purpose. What purpose do you need the subnet for? So this one we are trying to create is the default subnet, where our resources are actually allocated to resources like our virtual machines, so that they can get their IP addresses. So if at some point you are working on other services like firewall or gateway bastion, so you need to create their own subnet. So you need to change this from the default to the kind of subnet you're working with. So we have the firewall, we have the virtual network gateway. If you're actually extending your network to on-premises, the route server, firewall management, via tunnel. So it all depends on, but by default, this is for the purpose of this particular lab, we are going to be sticking with the default. So however, we are going to be changing this IP address range. Currently, we have this consuming all the IP address range that we currently have, but here they want us to use /24 instead of /24. Yes, but the IP address should start from 20.10 and not 20.0. So I'm going to have this guy. Now, before I proceed, you guys should understand that when you have, this address space that you have here, it will tell you, let me just go back before. Okay, let me fix this one. Then when I want to create the second one, this address space that you have here tells you the number of resources you can actually attach to that particular VNet. So here we have 65,536 address space or addresses available. Not all of them are available though, because like 5 of them are going to be consumed by other services. But at least you can see we have 65,336 addresses. That means when we are creating this subnet, I've told you that subnets are chunks of your virtual network. So we are saying this house, I'm building this house. However, within this house, I want 8, bedrooms. So it's still, when you want to say, oh, I want to go, it's still going, you're still going home. It's not as if I'm going to my room, because it's still within that particular house. Or let's say you have this very gigantic building with over 200 apartments. What they've done is they've done like a subnet, but still we have one single building, even when we've got different rooms, different apartments within that, and that's it. So the total of those rooms makes up that particular apartment, and that is what's going on here also. So you have 65,536 addresses. That means when I start creating my subnet, I can create up to these, depending on the size that I want to create for each of those subnets. So it doesn't have to be the fact that, okay, because this first subnet is /24, the next one also have to be /24. I can decide to go /25. I can decide to go /26. All this slash that you can see is just what we call the CIDR notation. So instead of saying, oh, the IP address starts from 10.20.10.0 up to 10.20.10.255, that means I'll start saying 10.20.10.1, 10.10.20.2. I'd rather just say /24. So it's a networking term, and I just like, okay, based on my calculation, because there is a way we calculate it. Based on this calculation, this is the number of address space available, within this particular subnet. So this one is just like a CID notation to tell you the number of addresses you can actually have here. So and that's it. So don't be too confused.
Sorry,
Yeah.
excuse me for interrupting you, please. That's 65,000 whatever addresses.
Yep.
Does it mean the amount of resources that can be,
Yes, that
or
you can attach within to this VNet, yeah.
Okay, that's what it means. Okay.
Yeah.
But
So
what about the one showing, the one showing 24/256?
for every, so what we're doing is we are subnetting, right? We are dividing this VNet. We do not just want all the all the 65,000 here. So I rather just say, for this, I've got this VNet. However, I want to say, this is the way I want to have it. We've got this company called IT360NG. Within IT360NG, we've got different departments, right?
Yeah.
Now, the finance department, these are their resources. I want to create subnet and say all the finance department's virtual machines should be connected to this subnet.
Yeah.
Then I'll create another subnet and say it's just you dividing,
Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah. So that is what. So we'll start dividing until it finally gets, until we finally use up
Use up.
5,000. Yeah. So that's what's going on here. Do you understand?
Good.
So your VNet address space should always be larger, because that's where you're going to get your subnet addresses from. So now we've said this one is the shared. We can have something like the core. So this one, it says that all core services, let's say you've created a firewall, you've created a key vault, but something like that, every core services or some virtual machines like that you use for management within your environment. You want to have them under all these shared services. You understand? So you want to attach them to this particular subnet. Now you can see the other one, which is the database subnet, meaning anything you can see here is more related to resources that are, database related kind of. So these are database resources, and this is where you want to attach them. So if I create a virtual machine within this particular environment and attach that particular NIC card of that virtual machine, to this data, that means it's either that machine maybe is used for, connecting or troubleshooting that database, but everything I want to have here should be related to the database. So you can divide that. It might be based on deployment, it might be based on the kind of resources that you want. It can even be based on environment. Maybe you want production, for that's it doesn't even, that might not be the best or ideal way, but you just want to separate your the address space within your VNet. You want to divide them into chunks, and that's why we have the subnet here. Do you understand?
Yeah, thanks.
So if I want to create a new one now, so I just come here and add a new subnet. And I'm still going to be picking what's the subnet purpose. It's still going to be default, and it's what will be the name. So I'm going to say the database subnet. Here it's still telling me, okay, this is the address range. That means this is where you can actually pick from. Because I picked .10, 20.10, this guy is telling me, do you want to use 20.9? So I can use 20.1, 20.0. You understand? Because they are still available. Immediately I type in 20.10, it's going to start telling me, guy, there is a subnet already that's, that owns this particular address. Or I even say, oh, okay, it's 20.10, right? I don't want to use 20.10.0. I'd rather just use 20.10.155. This guy is still within that particular subnet that I've created, because there are 256 addresses, and that means I've consumed, and this guy start from 0 to 255.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it 256, because it's from 0 to 255. That means I cannot use anything from .10 again. So if I change this to .11, we are going to get a different one. So I'm just going to say .0. That's a different one entirely, because the 256 now doesn't have any conflict with the other one I've created earlier. So but in this case they're telling us to use .20, so I'm going to stick with .20. So imagine I can have 20.10, 20.0, .1, .2, .3, .4, .5 until I get to, even you can see I can still even have 254, 255. It goes that way. Do you understand? Then once that one is completed, then I can start doing 20.1, 20.2, not for this subnet, at least for each of the machines, or any resource that I want to associate. So you can see that we've got so loads of, so that means I can create 250, based on this one that I'm creating now. I can create 256 subnets under this particular VNet. 250, but now I don't want to create 256. I just want to go with what we have here, so I'm just going to continue this way. Nothing to create, they didn't ask us to create anything, they just asked us to so you can see, that means I've consumed 512 addresses out of the 65,000. So I just rather go ahead and so I'm told to click on review and create, then verify that the configuration passed the validation. So there is validation happening. This validation is just checking all those information that you need to present, or provide: the virtual network name, the resource group, are they there? The IP address, the subnet, are they there? So if we have, like, let's say, a policy that says you cannot create any machine without a tag, it will check it also and say, guy, come back here. You've not created any tag. I'm not going to work, So that's what the review is doing. So just go ahead, and we passed the validation already. So here you can see this is everything: the subscription name, the resource group, the name of the VNet that I'm creating, the region. Under security, we've not enabled anything. We just passed. So under address space is where we, the VNet address space, then the subnet that we are creating. So I'll go ahead and create this. So that's so you can always see something deployment in progress. So what's happening is, I'm so sure we talked about the ARM template initially, and every resource that you're creating, regardless of the tool you are using to create it, be it Terraform, ARM template, regardless, everything is still using the ARM plugin, to create whatever you need to create. I'm so sure when we were going through the theoretical aspect, we talked about it, So, but it will become clearer, as we go on. So we are getting there though. So yeah, at least you can testify this is not like the way you guys were when we were doing the fundamental. It's now different. It's more. So now we go to the resource. We're told to go to take a minute to verify the address space and subnet. Notice that other choices in the settings. So yeah, we just go to address settings, the address space itself. Once we start creating virtual machines and we start assigning those virtual machines. So this guy is telling me, so there is, I told you guys that that's why I didn't want to create the AZ104 because I know maybe someone else might have created it, and you can see it's actually overlaps with this virtual network called service VNet. Not this as, but there is another one. So but never mind, that's fine. So if any virtual machine has been attacked, this is where you're going to see the NIC, not the virtual machine itself, but you're going to see the NIC, of that particular machine on this particular list. Let's say it's taking time, man. What's going on? Always taking time. I'm ready to get. Okay, so subnet. So you can see these are the subnets that we've created. You can still create more subnet from here. If you want to. So it's not compulsory you create those subnets. Why you're creating the VNet itself. So you can still come back here to create the subnet. So there are other settings also, like they said, we should notice other choices within the settings blade, the bastion, DDoS attack protection, the firewalls, Microsoft Defender for cloud, network manager, DNS, if you want to pair service endpoints. These are some of the things we've talked about, private endpoint and the likes. Now, in the automation section, select export. So let's say the next time we want to create a VNet, we do not want to manually create it. We want to use like an ARM template, like Terraform. So what Microsoft has done is they've actually included the template. So you can come back here and click on the export under the automation blade. And this is what this guy is going to give you. Just hold on. It's going to generate like a template which you can actually use in creating your next virtual network. So same thing goes with the bicep, same thing goes with the Terraform. So this guy is going to generate a Terraform script, for this particular virtual network that I've created. So the next time I'm trying to create, okay, there's something wrong with Okay, I've not registered Terraform. Okay, so this is a good learning call. So if you, let's say you get this particular error, anyone, what do you feel like I have to do to resolve this particular thing? Just read it carefully. Let me know if you have an idea of what I need to do.
I think okay, you said no, I think
No, I think
I believe
once you think
your
like this, I'm removing your answer.
okay, I believe I'll use another word. So I believe probably your subscription, your current subscription does not have that functionality for Terraform. So maybe you might
Yes.
need to upgrade.
So if you
Subscription.
so we have what we call the resource provider. I'm so proud of you, but we need to really know the specific thing. But so if you go by the error, it says there is a resource provider of this type, or of this name, Microsoft Azure Terraform is not registered. Please make sure it's registered. That's what it said. So I'm just gonna go back to my subscriptions, and to this particular subscription that I'm actually using for this lab. Then there is what we call the resource provider. So under settings, you can see there is this blade for resource provider. So what I'm going to be looking at, for every resource that you're deploying, you need to have that resource provider registered. So you can see some of them, Azure Advisor, API, apps. So if I want to deploy an app service now and I don't have this resource provider registered, then it's not going to work. Do you understand? So all these virtual machines, all these stuff that I'm actually deploying needs to, some of them comes by by default, but like these cognitive services, you have to go there and register it, or else you will not be able to deploy any AI related service on this particular subscription. So what I'm going to look for, I'm just going to type in Terraform, and you can see this guy is not registered, and that's why. So if I try to deploy or create anything related to Terraform, not I can deploy Terraform to this, but because I'm trying to create, I'm trying to export something out, which is part of something linked to the Terraform at this particular time, it needs to have that particular resource provider registered, and that's why I'm not getting that that script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that and register it. So once I register it, I will be able to export that particular Terraform script, but that's not the case here. I'm just going to go back and go back to the ARM template, because that's what we really need, and download the ARM template. So I'm going to download it because that's what they want me to do. Has it downloaded? Oh, okay. Just a minute. I want to be sure. Oh, okay. Lovely. Lovely. That's done. So that's downloaded already. So they said download the template, navigate to your local machine, and extract that particular file. Before proceeding, ensure you have the template.json file. You will use this to create the manufacturing VNet in the next task. Now, we've created this particular one via the portal. Now, or let's say using the UI. Even still using the UI, we are now going to use this particular template that we've created to create another virtual network. But we are not going to come to this blade and start searching for virtual network. Rather, we're going to use the template in this case. So I'll just go to the, you might not see it though, but I'm just going to extract the folder that has been downloaded for me. So it downloaded as a folder because I included the parameter. So so when you're creating your, just give me a minute. When you're creating your template, aside the JSON file needed for you, which is the templates.json file that is needed to create your resource, you also have the parameter file. Parameter file is where you now decide some of the properties, of that particular resource that you're deploying. So that's it. So let's go. So that's the task 1 that has been completed. The task 2 says we need to create a virtual network and a subnet using the template. Now we're not going to be creating it the same way we created this core service VNet. We are rather going to be using the template. So that's we've downloaded, which is fine. Edit the file using the editor. Many editors have changes. So what are we trying to do? Because let me just go to that particular file and start editing it. You will see why we need to edit it, because we downloaded the template which is for another VNet. Now if we want to create a new VNet using that template, there are some things we need to edit, like the name, like the address space, so that there is no overlapping. We can also make changes to the subnet of that particular. So I'm just going to share this. So this is not magical, so don't be afraid. It's just what we've downloaded. Somebody is saying, can you create a VNet just like this one that you currently have? And that's that's the way you go in there and start editing. There is nothing here. These are just parameters that says what is the name of the virtual network that you want to create. So where is it, man? So give me a minute. So this one says replace all occurrences of core service with the manufacturing VNet. So I'm going to copy this guy. So default name for this particular virtual network that have been created is core service. Now I need to change it. I need to change all this guy. So the best way for me to do this is just to do a control find, paste, control find, then scroll down, replace it with this guy, and you can see 9 different occurrence. So I'm just going to do replace all. So I'm replacing this. Now the next thing is for me to now replace all the occurrence where I've got the IP address, like this space. So this is what I keep telling you guys. Codes are not something you cannot read. Like this ARM template now, I'm so sure you can read it. Now here, when we want to create, especially when you're working with the ARM template, we've got this block. We've got the parameter block, we've got the variable block, we've got the resource block, For this particular one, because the resource block is what I'm more concerned about, this is where the resource I'm trying to deploy, that is where I'm going to be editing most of the thing related to that resource. So I'm trying to deploy, what's the type of resource that I want to deploy? I want to deploy a virtual network, and that's the type. The API version, you can leave that for now. The name, now I do not want to give it just like a random name. I want to have a parameter, and this parameter, it says anywhere you see this virtual network underscore manufacturing VNet underscore name, and you can see this is the same thing that we have here. It says, because I've actually declared a parameter here, and say anytime you see something related here, this is the name that you should give it to it, the name that you should give to it, which is the default value, and the type should be string, meaning you can have a combination of numbers and alphabet. Now if I want to now reference this name anywhere, I would just come to this place and say parameter into bracket, then I'll put a you know, and I put what's this? I put this into, you know, as a string, and add, you know, this particular parameter that I've actually declared. Why do we do this? Because if I come here and type in, because let's say this guy, you know, the name actually let's say it's actually declared in 9 different places. That means I need to always come here and say manufacturing VNet, manufacturing VNet, manufacturing VNet, and replace all the 8 places. But this one, if I want to change the name, this is the only thing I need to change. I just need to change this to new VNet, you know, and this is the name is you know, is going to come out with. So I don't need to go into the code and start changing the name one after the other, and that's why we declare it as parameter, you know. So the same thing goes with the location is the East US, just like we can see, and here is the address space. So the address space of the VNet is this, which is the 10.20.20.20, sorry, 10.20.0.0/16 that we've declared also. And under this place, you know, is where we start declaring our subnets. So subnet 1 is the shared, subnet 2 is database subnet. If I want to add a new subnet, all I need to do is just to copy this particular block. I'll copy this particular block and I add like a new block to it, you know. Then here, because that's not the final block, I just need to, you know, come on, yeah, I just need to add like a comma here, and I'll create another one. You understand? So that's how we work on all these things. So these things are readable, you know, they are readable. So the coding is not anything. It's just you understanding, you know, some keywords, you know, some keywords, and you able to at least know what the code is trying to do. This one I know is going to be deploying a virtual network and 2, you know, subnet. So I'm just going to remove this particular subnet that I've added. So that is fine. Here, I'm going to be changing this. So anywhere I've got 10.20, they want us to change it back to 20.30. So I'm going to look for this guy and do a control find on this guy. So replace it with, so it only occurred once. So replace, okay, because it only occurred once though. Okay, it's replaced already. Then here, I will need to make changes to the subnet name and the like. So what's the name of the subnet? Now here, they are not using parameter as the name of the subnet because they feel like it's only happening once, you know. So they had coded. So this one is you hard coding, you know, you hard coding the name of that particular subnet. In this case, you can see the name I've got like a logic. There is a logic already, like we reference a parameter. That means if this actually, if I want to use this or I want to, you know, declare the name of the VNet in any other code here, you know, I don't need to start hard coding it. So this one you can see is different from this one where they've got parameters, but in this one they've just hard coded the name. So so they want us to still change this guy to sensor subnet 1. Don't forget that we've changed the address space. That means .20 cannot be within .30. So that means we need to change the .30, the 20 here to 30. So same thing goes with the database. So I'm going to change this guy to sensor subnet 2, and I'm going to change this to this .30. This is 21. Okay, this is 20. Sorry, this is 30.20. So what else? Then read back the file and ensure it looks correct, which is fine. And we need to save this. So we need to save it. we've done the one for the template. Now let's go and edit the parameter also. The parameter.json file. I told you the parameter is where we declare some of the things. Yeah, TJ.
Sorry, how did you save it? Is it just normal
Yeah,
controls?
that's Control X. That's
Okay.
Control. Yeah, that's Control X.
Okay.
It's not. It's nothing. Let's hold. This guy is still loading. Yeah, I'm schema. What do I need that for, man? Just give me some time. Come on. What's going on, man? Okay, that's saved already though. So I don't know why it's still. I'm just gonna close this. Just give me a minute, please. Okay. Give me a minute, please. That's still coming up. Yeah, VS Code. Okay, I think my VS Code is not responding. That's why. Okay, lovely. So let's hold on. That's the parameter file coming up. So the parameter file, the parameter file, you can see that's the same parameter that we have at the top there. So you can decide to have your parameter.json differently, or you can decide to have it, still within the template.json file. Just like the one I showed you the other time, we still have it within the template.json file also, but they rather just separate it, and that's why they have it here. So I'm just going to replace this particular guy. So when you have parameter, you just making sure that you don't add code your what's it, maybe the name or anything within your code. You want to control it using a parameter. So I'm just gonna save this guy. Then how do I now get this in to deploy my VNet? So I'm going to look for what we call the custom template. So we have this service in Azure which we call deploy a custom template. So within the portal, search for how to deploy a custom template. So you are still using the GUI, even when I could run these, from my Visual Studio Code, but it will take, you need to have some connection. You can also run this within your within the Azure Cloud Share. Yeah, but for the purpose of these, we are going to be using the custom template deployment within the portal. So what do we need to do? Let's say you have to deploy a virtual machine, maybe a Windows virtual machine. They've got a template which you can actually use if you do not want to, manually deploy them. So you can leverage on this template if you want to create a web app. These are just quick starts template that we've got within the environment. So depending on what you want to do, let's say I want to create hold on. Let's say I want to create like a virtual I'm trying to see what one of the things that you guys understand. Okay, so an Azure Bastion or an application gateway, they've got a template, so you can select the template. You can also edit the template. But in this case, I've got my own custom template because I've got it on my own local machine. So what I will just do is I'm going to click on build your own template in the editor. Then what do I need to do? I need to just add, the parameters and the like. So I need to select my template. And how do I, load that particular template? So click on load file. It's going to try to find my file. So I'm just going to go, we have downloaded it to, that's within my download. Then I'll load the template.json and you will see everything that we've worked on. I can also come here instead of editing that within my virtual studio, and I can also come here and edit it, but we've edited it within the virtual studio, which is fine. Then I'm just going to save this guy. It's still showing, man. It's not going to work, man. Just give me a minute. I should have edited this thing well. Yeah, but just give me a minute. So I might need to still open this guy. Because I could notice some error here. Okay, give me a minute. I'm going to quickly. I just thought it was one occurrence, so I'll go back to my. Did I close? Okay, I did close it though. New file. No, not a new file, man. I need to open a new file. Open file. Let's see. So I'll go to my downloads. Export templates. Here. Yep. So I need to still give me a minute. So I didn't see the parameters though. So control find. Then I will replace it with no, man. I'll replace it with this thing, sensor subnet 1. Replace all. Then I need to save. Then I'll look for the database, and I do a control find here also. Then that should be 2. Yep. Then I need to save this. Okay. So I'm gonna load the file again. I'm so sorry. I'm going to load the file again. Yep. So that's fine. Yeah, that's fine now. Yeah, save it. Yep. So now I need to select, to edit the parameter that I will be deploying this to, because the parameter name also changed. So I'm going to click on load file, then go to the parameter file, then save that guy. Come on. Yep. Save. Then what resource group do I want to deploy this? So we did it to the Azure Labs, right? So Azure Labs. And yep. So East US, which is fine. virtual machine name should be manufacturing based on the one we want to create. Then we just click on running final validation. Let's see, everything is done. Then I click on create. Now you can see that in this case now, I'm not putting in the name, going to the virtual network page just to put in the name, the subnet, the address space, everything. Oh man, something happened. That didn't deploy to. I want to see the error, please. So subnet is not a valid because the address is really. Did I not change it? Oh, I never changed that thing. I don't know what is wrong with me. So just give me a minute, please. I thought it was one. I didn't know it was more than one. So 10.20.20, we are asked to change the 10.20.20 to this one. So if you read the errors, you should know where the problem is. So the error says this particular address space that I'm actually referring to is not within, because 10.20 cannot be within 10.30. So just give me a minute. We are going to solve this. And this is one good thing about you being able to read the errors. If you're able to, then you know what to do. Yep. So I'll save that. I'm not sure. I think that's why it was still flagging me. Yeah, okay, so unfortunately, I need to go back there to redeploy. So deploy a custom template. So I need to go ahead with the process again. But at this point, I'm just going to, since we've explained how to do this, I'm just going to quickly load whatever I've done and go ahead with this. So yeah, yep. So you can see there was no, and it was giving me sign. I could see the line, and I wasn't even looking at it though. Okay, save. So edit the parameter, load file. Parameters, save. Azure Labs. Click. Run in final validation. Then create. So now, shouldn't have any error. So we'll just wait for these to deploy, and let's see if we are able to deploy this time. So now you can see the deployment, is successful. So let's go to the resource group and check our VNets that have been created. So we just created the manufacturing VNet using our template. We're using the core service template that we've downloaded, but we had to make some changes, to this, and that's what you can actually see here. So if you check the address space, the subnet also is going to be different, but it's going to be based on the ones we've supplied. So someone else have got the manufacturing VNet also. So you can see is the one based on the one we supplied, why we're working on the template itself. And that's that. The next thing for us is to now configure create and configure communication between our ASG and NSG. So like I said, so all you need to do, we actually have an example. We've made, we talked about the differences between the ASG and the NSG. So all we need to do now is to search for application security group within the portal, the application security group. So instead of creating the NSG, trying to, have this traffic one after the other, why not let's create like a group where we can actually assign like a collection, then assign security settings, at once instead of separating them one after the other, leveraging the NSG. So yeah, same subscription. I'm going to be creating this application security group, and I'm going to create it within the same subscription where I've got my VNet. So I will name these based on the name they've given to us, which is the ASG Web. And click review and create. You can see there is nothing you're really doing here. But here, what you want to do is just to group, everything together. To yeah, for sure, we're just creating. There is nothing to associate at this point, So, but we need, when we finally create this ASG, you will see that we can now start associating our virtual machines, to the ASG later on. But for now, it's kind of empty. If you want to create a new ASG also and you want to use the template, you can actually do the same. It's all for all resources. So for now, you can see there are no machine link, there is no IP address link. So you can see, so at some point when we start having some of those virtual machines that we want to group together, and this is where we are going to be linking those interfaces. So I can click on all this guy and put all of them within one ASG. So instead of now creating, so you see the good thing about this guy. Now I've got labs, desktop, all the network interface within my environment, and what I'm trying to do is I've got this rule that says no inbound via port 3389, which is the RDP port, and I just want to make sure that all the network interface within my environment, I've got this rule. Now I can create an ASG now and just add all of them here and apply that rule. That means I do not need to go to each of these NSG where these guys have been attached to and start adding the rule one after the other. So that's what the ASG gives you. It gives you that, ability, to be able to add collections of your virtual machine and assign just one particular security settings to them. So we need to create an NSG group, and like I said, an NSG group or an NSG can only be associated with a subnet or the NIC, of your machine. Excuse me. Okay, so let's now create a network security group. We've created like an application security group now. So let's create a network security group. Still here. We've got loads of them though. But I'm going to be creating one within this particular this particular RG that we've just created. So I'm going to call it my NSG. I'm thinking, I hope there is no one. Okay, so also this is going to be within the same resource group that I'm using, and the name is going to be my NSG secure, still within the East US. Click on review and create. It's going to review the basic information that I need to give, if I've actually given everything. If I skip any of this guy, it's never going to work. So let's hold on. So after NSG is deployed, like I said, you cannot associate your NSG with a VNet. You can only associate your NSG to, a subnet or an NIC or a NIC. So another thing you need to understand is when you create an NSG, Azure creates some initial rule, like the 65,000, 65,001, and 65,500, which deny all inbound. You can start adding your own rule afterward. So, but for this one, we are going to leave it the way it is. So here it says you create this, and under the settings we can add our own subnet. So if you go to the subnet now, I can now decide what subnet do I want to associate this to. So I'm just going to look for the shared core and service, which is this subnet, and associate that particular NSG. So what this means is any rule that has been configured on that NSG will start applying to that particular machine, or any machine that has been added to this particular subnet I've added here. So that's okay. Now I need to configure an inbound security to allow ASG traffic. Now we've got inbound and outbound, ingress and egress. Ingress means, or inbound means traffic coming in, and outbound or egress means traffic going out. So in this case now, I want to control what comes in and what goes out, of my environment. So we need to configure this. All we need to do is just to go to the inbound security rules and add a new one. Now one thing is the ones that are default, which is the 65,000, 65,001 and 65,500, they cannot be edited. They cannot be edited. You can only create a new rule, that will supersede those ones. So in this case, we are going to be creating a new rule that will supersede that. And what will be the source? The source, because I know where it's coming from. It's coming from my application security group. I'm just going to select, and I'm going to look for that application security group that they created. Give me a minute, please. For a class, man. Great. All right. So that's the application. So I want, in this case, if you guys understand, we are saying any traffic coming from this particular application group. That's the meaning. So, and that's why we are picking it as a source. If I pick an IP address as a source, or my own IP address, meaning traffic coming from any of these IP address I've added, or traffic coming from my own IP address, if I want to use my IP address, that means any traffic coming from here. But in this case, I'm actually looking at the traffic coming from this application security group that I've actually created. So what would be the source port range? That means any port, destination should be any, service should be custom. So I want to customize, what would be, so I'm not saying, oh, it should be HTTP, it should be RDP, SSH port 22, SQL, I'm picking custom because I want to, have this customized, because if you pick any of this guy, it's just going to add the destination port, because HTTP is port 80, HTTPS is 443, SSH is 22, RDP is 3389. So it's just going to add it. But because I want to customize it, I want to add multiple, so I'm not going to use any of the ones known to, Azure. So I'm just going to have this added. So you can decide to add more ports. depending on the ones you want to open. That means traffic coming in only have, to go to this particular destination port. If this port is blocked, then it's not listed here, then it won't let it, so I can add 223389, depending on what you need. Sorry, there's not 2289, 3389, depending on what you are trying to achieve. So in this case, I'm going to clean up this and, have only 80 and 443, which is the HTTP and HTTPS ports opened. And protocol is TCP and transport protocol. Now, action. What will be the action? That means traffic coming in from this application gateway via this particular port should be allowed, and that's what this means. Priority is 100, which is fine. What do you want to call this particular NSG? I'm going to have the same name, which is the allow ASG. Then, click on add. So here it says I should have priority 100. Now the question I have is 100 and this 65,500, which one is, in terms of priority, in terms of how they will be checked, which one supersede, is it the 65,500 or the 100?
100.
What did you say? I can't hear you.
Oh, I said it's 100.
Okay, lovely. Yes, it's 100 because the lower the number, like I said, the higher the priority, and the lowest number you can actually go is 100. The highest number is 65,500. So that's fine. So I'm just going to add this particular security rule, which is the inbound, and you can see here says allow this guy, via this guy. And so you need to create additional one. And now you can see I'm putting this on 4,900 and 4,096. So I'm quickly going to create this guy, and let's see. So configure an outbound for NSG that denies internet access. That means any traffic coming out of that particular ASG to the internet should be denied. So I'm going to click on configure this. This will be that's allow inbound, which is fine. Any source service tag destination should be service tag now because I'm saying from this going out, from this application gateway, from this going out to the internet, I want that to be denied, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So I know the service which I do not want, those machines to get to, and it's the internet. So I'm going to leave these. Destination port means I do not want to restrict it to any port, any port. So that's why I'm going to be selecting asterisk. Any port is either HTTPS, SSH, SQL, HTTP itself, RDP, any port, and that's why I'm going to be using asterisk. Then the action is going to be deny. I'm not trying to allow, so I'm going to deny. And priority number is 4,996. It's still the lowest here. It's still going to be the lowest, on this outbound, so it will still work because it's still the one with the highest priority, lowest number, and I'm just going to be creating this. So that's how we configure ASG and NSG for these core services. So any machines added on this particular core service, they are going to be leveraging that particular ASG or NSG that we've actually created. So the next thing for us is to now configure public and private IP DNS. I spoke about the fact that when you leverage on what we call the domain name service, the DNS, what you are trying to do is you are trying to say this particular domain, anytime anyone visits it, it should be redirected to this particular IP. So that IP address we cannot store. So imagine they tell you, every time you need to go to Google, you start cramming the IP address saying, oh, it's 130.29. It's not going to be easy. How many websites are you going to be able to, do in that particular, regard? As against when you just have to type in maybe the custom domain. Sometimes we don't even know the custom domain. We just search for something very close to it, and whatever information that we want is going to be given back to us. So in this case, the domain name system will solve the host name to your domain. So the host name of your machine is going to check this machine, then it's going to redirect it to the domain that has been actually configured to that particular host name. So in this case, we are asked to create a DNS zone. So I'm just going to look for DNS zones. Then I need to create a new one. Select a new subscription. I'm still going to be using this particular subscription, that I'm currently using. Same resource group also, which is the Azure Labs. And I'm going to be configuring this name. No, we won't be able to use this though. So we won't be able to use it, but I can use something like, let's say, package dot yeah, something like this. It all depends on what I'm trying to do. So this guy says it should review. It's going to review it and say, oh, that is fine. And what are we even really trying to do? When we create a DNS zone, we are trying to manage that particular domain. And when we say we want to manage it, there are a lot of, record that we can actually add to that particular DNS zone to manage that domain. A typical one is the A command. The A command is what redirects, or is the one that associates your domain with the IP address of the machine that will be hosting your application. So literally, it is used for web servers. We have the TST record. We have the what's this thing? TST, SPSF. What's this? I've forgotten most of the record, but we'll see them. So if I click create, it's going to create a DNS zone for me. Then I can start adding, I can start adding. So you can see this guy is still using the deployment. So I'm just going to go to, so let's say I own this particular domain. Then I can start adding, or managing my DNS from here. So you can see the DNS record. In this case, it all depends on what you are trying to manage. So if you are trying to, let's say I have a virtual machine in this particular environment, that is, I've configured like a, or I've created an application, and the application is, I can only check the application by visiting that virtual machine. If I want to check that virtual machine, what is actually showing, all I need to do is just to type in the IP address of that virtual machine. But that's not the case, because people from outside, how are they going to be accessing that particular website? Is it still via that particular IP address I'm typing in? And don't forget that the IP address I'm typing in, just like you could see here, is a private IP address, which is the 10.1.1.4. There is no way anyone from the internet will be able to access this guy because it's within my environment. So the only thing I could do is to create a DNS record and match or associate that particular domain with the IP address. So once I created an A record, just like you could see here, anytime anyone tried to access this package.com.ng, that person will be redirected to the virtual machine, that I've got this IP address. I don't know what's going on. This is not, so that is what we use the DNS record for. You can see the same thing goes with other ones. We can do a lookup, configure a private IP, a private DNS. Now, in this case, when we have a private DNS configuration, now we are not trying to expose to the internet. Rather, we are trying to do things internally. That means within our internal environment, we can actually have records also where people can access resources, web applications, and the likes within the environment without the need coming to come from the internet. I don't know what's up, but I believe that should explain it. Any question, anyone? We will not be able to look at the other two, but at least I'm so sure most of you have got access to these what's it, my Azure environment now. You can try to work on most of these things. If you need more help, just let me know. I can still add. Yeah. So any question from anyone? Okay. If there are no questions, and I'll stop the class today and we can call it a day, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Femi.
All right.